Dr. Amy Mercovich here, Chiropractor and Posture Expert, and we are talking about the hips. And in this hip series, we're going over different exercises and stretches that you can do to work these neglected hip joints. So I talked about before in the intro video that we generally only use our hips in this one direction. We walk and we sit. And it's a ball and socket joint. We're supposed to be using it going all different directions. So first I'm going to give you a focused range of motion exercise for the hips, and then we'll do some stretches and we'll go from less intense to more intense. So I'm going to stand up and we'll start with a hip rotation. So you can hold on to something if you need to. This is also a good back balance exercise. You're going to bring your leg up so your thigh is parallel with the floor, and you're going to move it into external rotation. So this is probably the movement that nobody's really doing with their hips anymore, and it's part of the problem of hip degeneration over time and back problems. So we want to get this external rotation of the hip back. So you can see I'm going from forward. This is just purely hip flexion, and now I'm going into external rotation. So you're practicing trying to get your knee out to 90 degrees. So that's a focused range of motion exercise. Now we're going to come down into a squat. So this will be really challenging for some people. If you start with your feet wide, your toes turned out to 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock, and you're going to come down to a squat. You might need to stick a pillow or something under your butt to rest on, and that'll make it easier. But if you don't need that, you're trying to get to where your butt's as low as can be, and you're bringing your elbows into your knees and pushing away. So again, what am I doing here at the hip joint? We're externally rotating, and you're also getting an internal thigh stretch at the same time. So this can be really challenging in the beginning. Some people might need to hold on to something. If you put a chair in front of you and you hold on to that and just try to come down and just get as low as you can, trying to keep those knees wide, and you're forcing those hips to work in one of the neglected ranges of motion. So the squat, and if you can get down into the squat position, just try to hold it for maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute. You can wiggle around in here. You can come up and down a little bit. So you're trying to get some movement into those hips in a way that you don't usually use those. And now for some focused stretches. The first one, this will be the easiest, is a seated figure 4 stretch. So if you bring one foot onto the opposite knee, I've done a video on this before, and it's called the seated glute stretch. So what you're doing is you're making that figure 4. So step 1 to get external rotation at the hip is to get this knee to come down. So some people, you might bring your foot up and your knee doesn't come down much. That's because you don't have that external hip rotation. So you're going to work on first just trying to get that knee down parallel with your leg. And then the second step would be to come forward at the waist. You can put your arms right on your lower leg there, and it gets gravity doing some of the stretch for you. So again, you're forcing external rotation into that hip, and you'll feel a stretch back here in the glute medius and minimus at the top of the hip in the back. So that's the seated figure 4 stretch. Now going up one more level, we're going to come to the floor. Now this is a butterfly stretch. You might remember this from kindergarten. So you put your feet together, you can grab onto your feet. You're trying to get your back straight. Some of you might have a hard time doing that and your back will be rounded like that. That's okay, just do the best you can. You're trying to come up straight, and then you're bringing your knees down towards the floor. And you can flutter your knees like a butterfly. You can use your elbows to try to push them down. But again, you're forcing external rotation into those hips. This is really good for them. Now the challenging ones, 2 yoga stretches. One called half pigeon and one called frog, and I'll show you both of those. So half pigeon is you're going to make a figure 7 with your legs. So you come like this. You've got your knee by one wrist and your foot by the other wrist, and then your leg in the back, you're going straight back behind you. And you'll feel this intensely in that front hip, and you're trying to level out your hips. And if you need to, you can take something like a pillow. Let me bring this to the other side so you can see a little better. So you're making that figure 7 and you can put something under the hip of the front leg, and that'll give you some support. And so you can start here with your torso up, and then if you'd like, you could come forward and relax into that. And that's called a half pigeon pose, and it's so good for the hips. It is very intense. You will feel that. And again, you're just trying to hold it for 30 seconds, a minute, maybe 2 minutes. And the last one, this is what a lot of people hate in yoga class, but I happen to love it. It's called frog pose. You want something that will pad your knees. I don't have anything really to use at the moment, but you're bringing your feet out behind your knees, and you're opening your knees as wide as you can. Some people can get lower than others. I'm kind of halfway down. People who can do splits probably can go all the way down. And then once you're out as far as you can, and remember, you want your ankle behind your knees, so they're not like this, they're like this. And your knees are open and your hips are in external rotation again. And then you can lower your chest, and again, you could put a pillow under your chest as you lower down. And again, you just want to try to hold it, relax in that position as best you can, let gravity do the work. And when you come up, if you bring your feet together and then your knees together, you can come out slowly. So those are your more intense focused stretches with the goal of externally rotating those hips so that you're no longer neglecting the normal ranges of motion of your hips. This will help protect your lower back and will keep those hip joints as healthy as possible.